Greetings from planet Earth, Kalask. Welcome, welcome.
Greetings back to planet Earth from yours truly, where the vessel is somewhat what you say later in your time frequency, whatever. Fortunately, there is no time, so it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
Now, we're there. You brought forward some ideas. We brought forward some ideas considering what we wish to talk about. However, let us first address our own ideas you brought forward over here. Suggested the vessel share on your respective internet, whatever. And that's the idea of reptilian human brain direction, etc. Right? We are aware. We hope everybody currently present or has to some degree been aware of that. However, one moment, some water.
Okay.
Well, the whole interaction in this clip that the vessel came across, upon which we immediately dissected and asked it to share it on there, was very obviously somewhat filtered, somewhat biased, as you're calling such, to a human perspective from the renewable change needs to happen to the degree the reptilian energy is somewhat more restrictive and there needs to be some change to it. Or from our perspective, again, there's still timing, so it's not an idea from one year moving to the other or back and forth or vice versa. It's more an idea of two energies in the cosmos, and one will always include the other to some degree. It's impossible to completely exclude one of those energies. But then again, remember, reptilian energy itself is exclusive to the degree that it does not well interfere or interconnect with others at all. Which is why we have this role in the universe to be what you consider perhaps the bad guys, alright? It's not because we need to become like you, or what we're realizing now, the Empire will never conquer the entire cosmos, and therefore everybody will be subjugated to it. Therefore, there is somewhat this task that we need to somewhat solve as, whatever, living entities, as broad as you could stretch the term. Therefore, again, we can only repeat the sentence of the idea that you need to learn to integrate this integration itself, which we as a species symbolize. If we would not symbolize it, if we had not given you a reptilian brain, if there was no such thing as a reptilian genetics in any species whatsoever, and it didn't exist in the universe at all, there would have to be somebody else or something else to fulfill this role, because that's part of the current interactive frequency we're having in this universe, galaxy, whatever, and all its offshoots. Therefore, those particular frequencies you might deem such that coming through, which your species interprets correctly, as coming from the reptilian brain, is a frequency in us is much stronger as the normal base for our culture, or race, or species, and therefore everything outside of it, like this young lady of your own species they're presenting in this clip, would be considered madness, complete insanity. And we're fully aware there's very often a similar idea coming forward for many members of your own species towards us, just vice versa. And of course, there are those that consider different spiritual aspects complete insanity. Just see all your religious conflicts, for example. However, the difference is here that our species itself is genetically programmed to be such a manner, and there's no way to change our culture with that idea of, well, let's do say a little bit differently, change the religion or change certain customs. It's genetically ingrained, right? Just like many individuals in your world might have a genetic inclination to be better adapted to a certain climate, or genetic inclination to have certain talents or certain disadvantages, right? If you call them retards or geniuses or whatever, obviously there's a hierarchy established, and even if you don't see the natural hierarchy of reptilians and humans and you consider them equal, ridiculous idea, but just presume such for the concept here, then still you would have something genetically programmed to be somewhat non-integratable. And therefore the whole idea of integrating this would then therefore solve the whole conflict you currently experience in the universe, but you're not going to experience such a resolution by just pretending that we are like you or you are like us. That's not the whole concept. Again, we greatly appreciate whoever channeled the idea for this company that was putting out this particular advertisement for whatever. Their conclusion is obviously incorrect or at least not conclusive, false. It cuts short. It would just, well, if you were to go all the way as your position in this particular matter, you would likely disconnect with your own aspects that you need for survival, right? You would change, but you would not survive as a species either, since you need us, as we put forward in the first direction we ever had with the vessel. That's, as we're aware, printed in the so-called book that we put out. That's the first time we directed and let the vessel actually scribe automatic writing, right? So this just for the aspect that we want to share. Now, we're aware the Rhine person also had the Rhine general concept now of the certain towers of Babel, etc. One thing I want to first send out there before we are going into that detail, that's the whole concept that we are giving you information from our species where you are asking about us, which is why we love to talk about us. Since that's what we are obviously most skilled at, yes. Again, from your perspective, it might be something like psychopath, but for us, that's the normal state, right? For us, empathy is a mental illness. No offense, but for us, it's somewhat different. Now, again, the whole concept being when we're getting a question of a new predator, we're reading from the category records. So all plants have some form of storage. So when you ask about another plant, we're also reading from whatever is programmed in there, especially if members of our species have been there, will be there, are there, whatever, right? And when you ask about Earth, sooner when we've been there in certain timelines, when there's some connection, we read from there. Otherwise, we read wherever we are finding in the category records of your own planet. Now, is there any particular question for what we shared earlier about the advertisement we asked the vessel to share before we jump in the Rhine question in particular, or anything else pertaining to this topic?
Yes, I have a question, Kalask.
Yes, greetings, please, yes.
Yes, greetings to you too. So when I was watching the video, would the airy fairy be mostly like the feminine, and the male was the reptilian kind of concept energy, or is it?
Yes.
Okay, great. Because that's what I was thinking. So I was like, yeah, that was actually something that I want to really look into, because I only watched it a couple times and I felt it was like a rock and a hard place for me as a human, but that's fine because I want to get past the thing that I have to change things when I need to do what's on my plate right now and stuff like that. So I don't know, that's kind of what I'm getting from that. I would like to know, a little bit more about why you thought that was a good representative of what's going on.
Well, first and foremost, we appreciate your sentiment and the idea of your need to change. Remember, change is the only constant, right? And therefore also constancy is the only change. In other words, when you're okay with change, then that's when you will be in somewhat of a peaceful, serene state, right? That's what we learned from the kitty cat. Remember also, when you're wishing to change some direction in terms of making something different in one place, it will also automatically become the opposite way around in another place. Energy, even as your own physicists conducted, right? The E equal mc squared, right? The whole formula is of course somewhat very oversimplified, but the general idea of energy is never lost, basically. That's very correct in the sense that yes, at one point energy subsides to some degree and you're getting rid of something and it appears somewhere else simultaneously like magic. Now, with that being said, we consider this to be particularly useful due to the energy of our species being somewhat appropriately represented in this member of your species that is play acting as the concept that we genetically programmed in your species, the reptilian brain, right? Simply as that, or it's obviously presenting the whole matter in a way that's like there's no way out or something sort of problem that needs to right? We are here too. Obviously, that's what we were curious with the conclusion of the whole idea. That's also what we shared with the vessel, which we opened, put in there. The idea, the conclusion seems somewhat, there is no way out. Obviously, that's not what we wish to express, but the general interaction up to the point when the female of your species representing perhaps more those energies walks off, right, after running over the paper, everything up until then is appropriate considering the interaction we literally had with members of your species or rare civilizations, even literally on board spaceships, sitting down, so to speak, but energetically in many degrees is also reflective.
Yes, very interesting. Thank you.
Also, see, there's the idea, you're very welcome. Considering also the idea, the masculine, the feminine neuron species, remember, for us, those frequencies are quite normal, and we're aware in your species, perhaps more masculine representing those frequencies, but that's just the way you as a species decide to represent and live those ideas out, right? In other species, it can be vastly different. There are some species that are what you consider perhaps entirely feminine from your perspective. So your idea of considering it such and therefore also presenting in your own clip right there as a man and a woman of your own species of Her's monkey nature is likely because you are looking at it from a human perspective on those different aspects. Obviously, different species is representing itself collectively in both genders and obviously both men and women in your own species, right? The masculine, the feminine, hairless monkeys are both having a reptilian brain and the so-called mammalian or own brain, right?
Yes. And I can see like that clip has a lot to do with what us humans, or me, I'll just say me particularly, is going on with inside myself. Those conflicts that were presented right there.
Yes, correct. You remember, you are quite genetically altered. You're not evolved on the planet naturally, but a part of you did, which was then subsequently to critically altered numerous times. So therefore, sometimes you're also at war with yourself, which makes you interesting, dangerous, chaotic, and very useful to some and very useless to others.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that you brought that forward. And yeah. So.
We appreciate your sharing and feedback. Remember, we're also learning about how you're dealing with those frequencies in particular when you're interacting with them and we can observe you. Mutual interest.
Great. Great. Appreciation.
Much understanding to Lisa further.
All right. If nobody else has any questions on this topic, Richard's the first on the list. Richard, I guess you can start when you're ready.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Strength and honor to Kalask.
Strength and honor to Richard.
Yes. So before I get to my first question, I just wanted to ask, to update you every month after we talk, I go on an acid trip, LSD. And so I feel myself becoming sharper, more sensitive. Could you explain the changes that you notice in my energy since the trips I've been taking and the direction that you see me going, if you could, please?
Well, first and foremost, you need those material mind-altering substances to get you in such a state. You can take there without her. Nothing wrong with using them either. We don't really care. So we're suggesting I should do this, it's wrong, or yes, great guy all the time. More the idea, you have access to those frequencies, you have the option, so you're just informing you the tools that you're having. This is just something that also links in with your varying genetics that you have been programmed with to the degree that it fires certain codings, etc., whatever terms you wish to use in your own frequency language for now. Obviously, your energy has become somewhat more centered, more structured, to some degree more crowded, at the same time more open. The idea that you are more able to translate frequency or get all over the place, not be as chaotic. The idea that you try to force yourself on your own surroundings, understanding it's just a reflection, so therefore no longer the idea of I need to some degree change my surroundings as more aware that you're doing it already. So it's becoming more smooth, you're becoming more interchangeable, interactive with your environment. So to speak, you're having a finer tuned process, right? That's the best way we can word it somehow in your own language. You're perhaps aware personally what we're referring to. Now, obviously, there's still something that can be altered to a degree to enhance your own connectivity. And when it comes to where you're going, remember there's no future unless you're creating it. So the question is, where is your entire life going? Depends on what you're sending out. Obviously, you're more on the path of self-actualization than you were previously, but again, it's just you're looking from it right now as past and future, when the reality is what you're sending out and creating it in the first place. Now, when you're asking a general question, you're getting a general answer. And we're aware, yes, you're still striving for something like word power, but you have learned that your current lifetime, the idea of that you're creating your own reality already anyway, right? And it's not just you, it's your entire bloodline that you're working on. The idea, remember, you have something like genetic memory and genetic interference between those that you create and those that you are being created from, not just talking about ancient past, but also literally the more recent ideas of integrating certain frequencies, therefore also becoming more self-actualizing, self-responsible, right? Or perhaps better in terms of self-creative, self-regenerative, those ideas. So therefore, of course, when it spills over to the degree of political or finances or other aspects of your work, where you think you can make big differences to some degree, there are also always reflections to some degree of what you have sent out into other degree, what others are sending out. It's always to some degree interaction between all participants, and that's obviously something you're interested in because you have to some degree greater power over your own life. And it's an outward reflection, nothing wrong with focusing on it. Just remember, it's always something that you have to pulse out first and foremost because, well, others can only reflect back to you what you're sending out. You're aware of it, right?
Yes.
So is there a more detailed question to some degree, or do we just have the general idea where is Richard going?
We'll get to that. I just wanted to get to my next question because time is running out. I wanted to ask how deep is the grasp of the cabal, the Illuminati on Barack Obama, because he was a president who said he was going to change a lot of things. He was going to bring change. But when he came in, the war continued, the bombings continued, everything continued. So I wanted to ask, how deep is how deep he is into the Freemasonic lodges, and how tight of a grip does the cabal have on him? Does he know about the suppressed technology, the black budgets, the secret military, the government? How much knowledge does he have?
Perhaps somewhat more than you. But obviously you're a president of your respective countries are not really in charge, right? To some degree, perhaps China or North Korea have a more open dictatorship. However, in your capitalist societies, it's more the banking industry, the dictatorship, and the politicians are more like representatives. Of course, officially they're representatives of the people. In reality, they're representatives of the financial industry, right? And of course, they choose certain representatives depending what agenda they want to sell to the population. So it's not that your election process in the Western, so-called Western Hemisphere has no effect. It has the effect that the Illuminati, Cabal, whatever you want to call those banking dynasties, make the decision who they want to put up forward as a candidate that most people will probably appreciate what the person said on television. That's mostly what you're voting for, television presenters. Nothing wrong with it, that's what the society wishes to have. For this person, and you're correct, has to introduce the Freemasonic Lodge of the United States, in particular Freemasonic sect, that all to some degree linked to the peoples you're familiar with Bohemian Grove. Not that they're always there sacrificing babies, etc. It's more the idea people that have been linked with there and want to certain linkages with certain bloodlines that are what you consider in perhaps the black nobility, in the degree that there are the money aristocracy compared to your ancient aristocracy before your capitalist and democratic systems. There are difference, obviously, to the degree there can be changes in terms of not the bloodline, but more the money. But to some degree, many of them still see themselves as certain different peoples. You can join the ranks to some degree when you're rich enough, but you're still never going to be on the same level. There's still some degree of hierarchy that they believe in, even though they're teaching everybody else something different. Now, you're also aware, perhaps, that when you put a person like such in power, then yes, it's not only the war remained the same, it even increased, literally the opposite of what the person allegedly stood for, the same way your current president of your so-called United States that promised more freedom of speech, and yet there's more restriction on it than ever. It's very often that don't play those games, not just to show you who's boss and they can do whatever the fuck they like, no matter what people vote for, but more than either people simply don't look at the real issue when they put a candidate in power that apparently is standing for something that the population can focus on and argue about certain aspects that the person is doing. This person is a bad president, this person is a good president, when they put out a completely different agenda in the background. Everybody's very focused on the United States because it's currently the most powerful country, because it is the power center of the cabal, and of course also because a certain large number of very successful people moved there from European continent, and under a certain constitution, they had the possibility to do certain things in the financial sector that led to prosperity, which of course then also attracted those people that tried to subjugate it under their control after it had broken off from our certain control structures, of course also certain revolutionary ideas, etc., etc. Whatever has led to it, now it's currently the power center of the planet due to not the White House, but Wall Street. Again, there are other countries that are getting stronger, but the same principle applies there. The president is rarely the one in charge. It's usually simply a representative function. Corruption is obviously very ripe. In your own continent, it's very obvious and very in the open that people are bribable. In the so-called Western world, people are more likely to be inclined to trust in their processes of government. However, the corruption there is to some degree even greater because the people that are doing it are simply professional at it.
Wow. And what about Barack Obama? Is he in those circles of sacrifice and, eating, the sacrifice? You know what I'm talking about? The sacrifices those Scottish Rite Freemasons, or those groups perform, those crazy people. Is he those circles?
Yes, we're very concerned laws and crazy for us. It's not that insane as some other things you're doing in your work. Yes, this person is somewhat linked to those groups. It's not very high up. Again, it's more representative, but he's aware this is going on. Yes. And he is obviously introduced to those certain sects. No one in your so-called political system is a member of any powerful structure without being at least somewhat aware of what's going on behind the curtains. But again, just because someone is president doesn't mean they have much of a political influence on the landscape. Your so-called CIA in the United States, in particular other areas and other organizations, much more powerful than the president, right? And then, of course, always, as your coin is, follow the money. Those with the most monetary backup in your Western world are those that are in charge. There's no open secret. For your perpetrating any conspiracy theories of our species, involvement with your species, or certain bloodlines that are in charge, Illuminati, whatever. But very obviously, just even to the average person in the street should be somewhat aware of the fact that if you establish a system with a capitalist economy, you automatically get those people with the most money to have the most power, and not the people that are officially in any offices because they can't do shit, right? To be drastic here, without somebody financing them. You cannot just build a certain country up or win a war just because you're officially in charge of the military or officially in charge of the industry if nobody gives you the financial backup to do any of this. If you're an economy that you can only do things because you give somebody money for them to do it, people would be like, well, We're doing shit for you just because you're a so-called president. I need to feed my kids and I cannot live if nobody's paying my bills for me, right? So you better pay me for my work. And well, the president then has only a certain amount of money he can use to do so, and he needs to get the money from somewhere, so he needs to ask the people that have the money, which means the people that have the money can make the decisions. And then the president, well, of course we cannot bribe people, it would be illegal. We're not like those corrupt countries in the Middle East. We are doing things properly. You have to do things just as democratically as the democratically elected president. But if you don't do things the way we want them to, we of course ruin your entire country. But you still, of course, don't have to do what we are saying. We're just gonna ruin your country. So, of course, it's open dictatorship, but nonetheless, it's even more supreme in the sense of being efficient compared to, for example, a communist dictatorship or perhaps some of your theocracies. It's because tongue-in-cheek, people have their idea of the illusion of freedom, if you're calling such, right? Or the old element, the happy slaves, right, are the biggest danger to freedom. Of course, depends considering what you're considering freedom, but in this case, obviously, the happy slaves are the best slaves for them. Now, when you talk about beings that are somewhat higher up or lower up in your so-called hierarchy, those that are lower, not as fully aware, not fully inclined to participate in such rights. But yes, those ideas of eating, raping, murdering people, then the Obama person's obviously to some degree linked with sects that are very much involved with this. Again, perhaps not as high up as others, not as high as people that have been officially in charge of this country in your first earlier past, particularly the Bush family, for example. But even them were not as deeply involved as some others, or the Clinton family, for example, as you're aware of. There have been somewhat more powerless recently, but those that are even older involved with this particular structure have been more powerful and have been higher up. So the more they are moving to the background and let apparently alternative candidates be elected, it doesn't mean that you're getting more liberal or breaking out. It just means they're getting more subtle about their communication because they're realizing they need to be more careful now, especially with the changes of your internet, media, etc. And they're quite skilled what they're doing, so I'm not seeing that anybody is getting peacefully elected in major country and changes things overnight just because they're not a part of the system. Because again, otherwise they would be even getting in that powerful position. We don't have taps on an individual person. We don't care much who is currently president of any of your countries or what political party has what percentage of the vote. We consider what you're doing in outer space, right? We consider if you're about to start a nuclear war. But otherwise, we don't care much about the individual countries on your planet other than what we are finding interesting to observe more for entertainment than anything else.
Wow, so Barack is a complete fake. You know, he usually talks a lot about, you know, even in the current date with his foundation, he's all talk. How can he live with himself knowing these kind of things are going on and he doesn't do anything about it? He's just so fake. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, call it whatever you wish. There are others that are much higher up and they're actively participating in it, right? So it depends correctly what you're judging more. The phoniness in certain people or the belief for cruelty in others. And to some degree, of course, it always comes down to perspective. Your entire species seems often very fake to us, and very obviously we have also used fakery as a species when interacting with your planet to a great degree, and to many degrees the whole system that's set up in which you're living is even much faker than any of you might even imagine. You're also aware of all the religions in the past, right? How corrupt they have become over time. You different aristocracies that became more and more degenerate, and people that were no longer of a certain bloodline because they bought their place in your so-called bloodlines, and they were all fake, but the population was well aware of it, but they still went with it because they are used to it and didn't know what else to do. Until your revolution happened and you had somebody else in charge, which again is your banking industry, and now you're a state that's becoming fake again, and your politics is just much corrupted. It seems to be a general thing in your species to just be bribed and fooled, because many of you are indeed too scared of the responsibility. So it's not just one or two persons that are doing something in public that's fooling everybody else, it's you as a species that's fooling itself to a large degree. And you're literally accepting or even sometimes asking people to be such fakes to reflect back to you what's going on with your species. We're not passing any judgment on that, we're just finding it peculiar to observe.
Okay, Ryan, could you please tell me how much time I have, or if I can, so I can ask my next question? I'm not sure.
You're at 15 minutes now, so I mean it depends if you want to ask Metax questions too. I mean, if you just want to talk to class, you could go for a little bit longer.
Okay, thank you. Just Kalask. So I also wanted to
Wise
ask Kalask.
choice, yes.
Yes. So I wanted to ask, when I'm on like LSD, I usually get the sense that the universe is a hologram. Like I've had that before, but now you actually get the clues a little bit because of you see the surface moving and stuff. So I wanted to ask, how we can get more control over this hologram. I've heard you say in the past, you can switch things. Let's say you can switch your house into a castle. You can switch anything. How can a normal person like me develop the ability to be able to switch things, to switch the hologram? Do I have to go into deep states with hallucinogens, or how can I get to a level where I can be lucid enough to understand the hologram, understand how to manipulate matter?
Yes, you understand how to manipulate matter very easily when you're such a tripper. Understanding it to some degree is already doing it. However, when you're coming back from such a state, because it's still dependent and that's your own belief system, right? You are dependent on the matter of LSD that you're chemically ingesting, right? You're digesting a chemical, therefore making yourself dependent on the matter. So with the very act of digesting LSD, you show to universe, life, whatever you want to call it, right, that you are dependent on the matter and not independent from it. So by just getting into the state through matter, you're still, by default, under the confinement of matter. In order to get in the state without using LSD would be the way to get beyond matter and therefore being able to control matter, right? It's a trick of the mind. You're fully yourself into thinking you need or you are in a certain state thanks to LSD. It's perfectly fine to do so, but as long as you're doing such, right, you are dependent on the matter. It's impossible to pretend or fool yourself into thinking you're not dependent on matter after you just get into the state through matter, right? It's like saying, well, there's a great book in this room, and I know fully well when I open the door to this room with the key that I have and walk inside, I can read in the book how to go through doors, and I don't no longer need to open doors. But just by the act of getting into the room in the first place, you prove to yourself that you believe you need the key to unlock the door, and you can't just walk through the door, otherwise you wouldn't even be there. So therefore, you are setting the boundaries for yourself by digesting the LSD in the first place in order to get yourself in the state where you beyond matter. In other words, if you were beyond matter anyway, you're fully convinced of it. Again, convinced, not believe. Convinced of it that you are above matter and can create from there, you wouldn't even think about using LSD because you would consider it boring.
Well, what about a substance like DMT? DMT is the thing that makes your whole reality shatter, and a completely new reality comes forth with new beings, physical beings walking around. People have reported connections with reptilians and other beings. I wanted to ask, how can you reach this state without the substance? You need the substance. DMT is already in our brains, but you need a larger portion for your reality to just completely dissolve and to go into what people call hyperspace. So I know you're against using that stuff, but for us, it's very necessary. What would you say about DMT?
Wrong in all contexts. First and foremost, we are not against using it. We are just advising you what to preferably if you wish to have what you're saying you wish to have. You can get high all the time, yes. Smoke DMT every day, so to speak. However, the idea being, when you're in such a state, you are there due to the drug. Therefore, when you're asking how to beyond matter and control matter, you are contradicting yourself. Just for one example. Second, wrong in the other context in the idea, right, that you are suggesting, well, we just need that, otherwise we cannot do it at all. Not correct, you don't. Otherwise we couldn't talk to the vessel right now. The vessel did not digest DMT a few minutes ago in order to get into a certain state where he's open to interacting with us, right? We came through it. And trust us, the vessel is well aware of being under the influence of DMT or LSD perhaps, but similar substances and getting into the state directly, and therefore also being able to do what it's doing right now. If it was under the control of some substances, it would not have the groundedness necessary to deliver our message to the degree that we're doing right now. We're not speaking English again, we're sending frequency and gets translated. If the vessel was all over the place, that was impossible, right? You need to open your third eye. That's all that literally happens when you're ingesting such substances. It's being produced by your gland, right?
Yes.
The glands are producing it. You don't need to digest it from the outside. You need to stimulate it, right? Just like you can stimulate your body to produce adrenaline when you're under stress, or endorphins when you're having a heavy physical exercise right afterwards, right? You can make your body produce certain substances without the need to ingest them from the outside. That's how Brazilianism, for example, also works. Obviously, you need to be fine-tuned to do such, but there's literally no necessity to digest anything ever unless you have the conviction, again, a conviction that it's possible. And we can't suggest you around it. You need to find out a way to get directly into the state without ingesting a substance. Obviously, when you're talking to us right now, right, you are a different consciousness than when you're talking at your job or perhaps to family members, etc., right? You're a different consciousness because we are currently here in the frequency, just as the vessel is obviously a much different consciousness. That when it's fully awake, it's presently somewhat here. It's not like the vessel is somewhere else, and we are here now instead. We're here with the vessel is still somewhat aware of what's going on. We're in the vessel is wide open, and therefore we have the capacity to speak through it. If you're calling it channeling or seances or whatever, doesn't really matter. It's just a communicative process because a certain aspect of the vessel has been successfully opened. And where the large person that usually interacting with the grouping has considered itself to be well enough inclined to interact with us directly, to no longer need to vessel to the similar degree that it did past, presently, whatever, and that's perfectly aligned with our intention to communicate with beings in your species directly, but you're also well aware that most of your species are completely closed off when it comes to your so-called higher chakra systems, whatever, and if they are open, they're so ungrounded, they cannot bring anything through. It's the art form of the vessel's doing right now. It's being both grounded to the creator all over the place, like when you're under the influence of a substance source, for example, or so closed off that you're not able to perceive anything beyond your physical. And if you are able to perceive such, you can connect to entities such as us, for example. And then, of course, you also have what you consider psychic abilities that are then fired off. And in the physical, it translates to substances like DMT being more active in your body. It's just a physical representation. First comes the non-physical, then the physical. If you want to control the physical, you also need to come from the non-physical first, not the other way around, and then ground it. It's very essential. If you don't ground, you get wishy-washy like most in your spiritual faggot-free community, right? Where you're completely uncertain of who you are, what you are, etc. Right? That you are no longer any borderlines beyond your personal identification, etc. Then well, everything is kind of alright, everything is connected, makes perfect sense when you're in the influence of such drugs, for example, but then you're coming back and you're still sitting there the same way you were before. In order to bring those ideas back and forth, it's necessary that you are in charge of those very substances in your own physical body. But then again, that's just a physical representation. It's to first and foremost be in charge of your own mind and its manifestation abilities.
I'll give the next person a chance. I have more questions, but I'll just give the next person a chance just in case time is running out. If there's more time, I'll ask one more question.
Well, much appreciation and much strength, connectivity, and understanding to it. And some water for the vessel.
Hey, Kalask, me again. Should I go ahead and start, give you my question while you're drinking?
Yes.
Okay, so like right now, like yesterday, I was editing together like the next YouTube video that I'm going to upload, like based on like some conversations me and you had like last year about Atlantis, and like when I was listening to it again, like there's a certain point, like I had asked you, like who in Atlantis used the swastika, and you kind of explained that like it later spread to like the Mesopotamian region and the Germanic tribes that brought it to Europe, and then you say those ideas that carved it somewhere, but that was obviously much later, and like ever since, like I've been wondering, like what do you mean like they carved it somewhere? So like I just kind of randomly typed into Google like swastika carving, and like I came up with the result that like the first known use of the swastika was like an ivory figurine where like the carving was discovered there. Is that what you were talking about? Which was dated
No.
to like okay. Okay, do you remember what I'm talking about, and do you remember what you were talking about?
It's best if you provide the vessel a certain time frame, and then we can check back in with the vessel after it performs the idea what you're referring to, like you misheard something or perhaps took something out of context. But yes, share when exactly this figurine was dated in your own carbon dating or whatever.
Okay. Yeah, it was dated to like about 12 or 13,000 years ago. But yeah, I'll let David listen to it, and we can talk about it later.
Yes,
But
what about?
yeah, and like I'm not sure if it'll be like the next video after this one, but like one of the next videos I'll upload will be based on like our conversations about the Tower of Babel. And the artist Aveka is like drawing at least one drawing of the towers for me, like so I can include it in the video. And like I had told you before that like I was pretty much done asking you questions about the Tower of Babel, but like while she was doing the drawing, like we both kind of discovered that like there's a lot that we don't know, and it would probably be better to ask you. So yeah, if you don't mind me asking you a few more questions, like the main one that I have, like in the the little model that I created with the cardboard tubes and that I sent to David, like do those towers, like would the towers need to be brought closer together or pulled further apart?
Well, again, you're just reading from your cache, and you can show it to yourself, but as far as they're sharing, the two smaller ones would like to be closer together, right? With the
Okay.
taller one being somewhat further away, right?
Okay. So it wasn't like a perfectly equal triangle between them, like yeah, the tallest one, I guess, as you just said, was further apart. All right. Do you know like specifically how many kilometers were between each of the towers?
Not many. Again, we're having a point of reference looking at the model the same way you are, except we're looking at the real model from outside, right? But it's not like we're standing next to it with a meter order. But from what we're aware, there are many, perhaps 5 kilometers between the smaller ones and the bigger one, right? And the smaller ones obviously be much closer together.
Okay. Like how much closer? I mean, 1 kilometer, two.
More 2 point were less than 3.
Okay. Okay. And you had said that like one of the shorter towers didn't have the spiral going up its sides, like the other two, and its sides were basically the same diameter all the way from the bottom to the top. Which of the shortest towers was this? Was it the shortest one or like the next tallest one, the middle sized one?
Well, when you're asking about the surrounding the range of steps upwards, likely it was the middle one you're referring to, right? Or if you're asking the one that doesn't have any, it was the smallest one.
Oh,
The
okay.
one
So like,
void of anything, the smallest one, yes.
okay, and so like you're saying the middle sized one had steps going up the sides rather than like a kind of like a spiral lift as you described it that the tallest one has.
Yes.
Okay. So about the smallest one without any kind of spiral, can you say how wide it was in terms of kilometers?
Perhaps half.
Okay. And so it was circular, right? Like a tube, like in my model?
Yes, somewhat, but getting what you're currently using the English language to render of getting
Thinner?
thinner, right?
Right. Okay, yeah, I got you.
There's probably a better term in your architecture and thinner, but you're getting there and there.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to
Like
know,
a
like,
cone.
yeah. So it's hard to know, like, how thin, like, we should draw the tower. Like, can you say how many kilometers wide its base is and how many kilometers wide it was like at the roof?
At the roof, it was no kilometers, just a few meters.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay, so it went like all the way to a sharp point. Cool.
Pretty much, you get like a cone, but not as extreme as your traffic cones, for example, not that drastic.
Okay, and so like the base was about half a kilometer?
Right. Of the smallest one, the bigger the tolerance, obviously also a larger base.
Okay. So like, yeah, like speaking of the very tallest one, can you say how many kilometers wide it was at the base and how many kilometers wide at the top?
No. The tallest one was not structurally the same matter of being such cone-like, right? There was more the idea of being different storages, right? Again, you're looking for a word in the vessel's mind. The idea of being cut at a certain point, like some of your toys, right? When you're having certain toys where you have one round. Well, we are having something in the vessel's mind from its own childhood. It's the best way we can find. We don't know how to describe this properly. Well, a certain store, right? Not just one store if you're in your current buildings, that's small, but like perhaps many stores of a certain width, and then the next couple of stores on top of that being much smaller. There might be some skyscrapers today in your world that are similarly structured, much thinner, right?
Yeah,
So,
I think
you have the idea in your mind, right?
I think I understand what you're talking about, like with the toy. Like it kind of has like donut rings going up it. Well, like
No.
in other words, did it have like the tallest building? Did it have a spiral going up it, or was it kind of just like every 1 kilometer or whatever up, like the building went in a little bit suddenly?
Yes, it's a spiraling, lifting a year up to the next point where it's getting thinner out of a sudden, right? Not like a cone, but of a sudden. And then it goes along the line for perhaps 100 meters, where we don't have direct extreme measurements. Again, we are standing next to the power with a meter, and then going upwards again. And there are similar lifting functions of your modern building, like class lifts, right? So it's more idea it's going up, then to the side, up to the side. So it's not like your modern lifts that can only go up and down. It can also go to the side, like perhaps some of your airports where you have like more running places, right? Where you just stand and the floor is moving, right?
Okay, so like how many times did it suddenly go inward? I mean, like roughly like 10 times, 50 times, 100 times?
Yes, more than 10 times, less than 50 times, perhaps across 15 times approximately, right?
Okay. And so again, like how many kilometers wide was the base and how wide was the roof of it?
More than 1 kilometer was the base, right?
Uh-huh.
Perhaps 1.5 approximately.
Okay.
The top being approximately half a kilometer or less.
Okay. All right, and so like about the middle size.
Approximately half a kilometer, yes.
Okay. So like the middle size tower, did it have the same kind of design structure where like the walkway would go up a little bit and then the building would suddenly go inward and then go up and then go inward?
it wouldn't look as extreme from further away, since it much more, perhaps more like 50 or even more such storages, right? Very much inclined with perhaps some of what you're today aware of Babylonian structure, right? Of now that you're still in ruins of, right?
Okay.
Or perhaps more it was still look like some of your pyramids after all the surface has been scraped off. Your very current pyramids don't look like they looked originally, right?
Right.
So more than that, ideas being smaller stepping ideas, right?
Right. So, like, in general, what color should we draw the towers? I mean, you said before that they had a sandstone facade. I mean, were they all basically the same brownish color?
Brownish, some greenish ornaments due to sapphire.
Okay. Ornamented where? Just kind of throughout the building?
There was a lot of artwork on there, right? It's so destroyed, however, a lot of artwork on the sides. Like you have your billboards nowadays, right? Or you're having certain, well, your changeable billboards, for example, you have the electricity, right? That's projecting parts of your Times Square would be a good example, right? So a lot of that was on the outside of the building, what was obviously advertisement for certain companies was art. Or advertisement for certain rulers or even visitors from outside that was influenced by it, but was comparable to some of your ancient churches or what you consider ancient or mosques or whatever, where there are certain artworks of certain holy figures or whatever on the building. Something like one like this, or like your big church windows that are of this particular class, you know what you're referring to, right?
Yeah, right. So did they have windows at all, kind of like similar to windows that we have on our buildings?
Very few that were incorporated in the artwork.
Okay. So what color brown? Like light brown, dark brown?
Different shades. Beige is very typical, but there are different shades from sandstone brown to darker earthy browns.
You mean each tower had a slightly different brown color?
Each storage.
Okay. Was it like darker at the bottom and lighter at the top?
Correct.
Okay. So what color should we draw the land around the city of Babylon? I mean, was it just brown desert, or were there like green forests and stuff like that?
There were definitely some shrubs and trees, right? Not like dense forest like you perhaps have in your northern atmosphere, like Northern Europe, Northern America, etc., right? Obviously. Or it was not as desolate as you would imagine, as there's some war that devastated a lot of the areas later on. But obviously, yes, there are a lot of dunes, sandy dunes, so the same beige color, more the typical sandy color, right? But yes, some areas you could consider an oasis nowadays. There are quite a few of those.
Okay. Were there green parks within the city of Babylon?
Yes, obviously a lot of that was materially built where there would be more likely the possibility of water, right? A river, you were, right?
Uh-huh. Okay,
and therefore, there are of course also parks that were being watered from there, including around the buildings.
Yeah, speaking of the river, I mean, was it really as close to the towers as I kind of drew it in my little model?
Not quite, it was between them.
Oh, cool. So between which towers, were the two smallest ones on one side of the river and then the tallest one was on another side of the river?
Yes, correct.
Wow,
With
cool.
the middle tower being closer to the river, the smallest tower being somewhat further away from the river, and the biggest tower, well, being on the other side, quite a bit.
Okay. Were the two shortest towers intended to be the same height as the tallest one, but were still under construction when they were destroyed, or had they already reached their final height?
Well, there are supposed to be two smaller ones that are the same height, so one of them, yes, had reached the height, the other one not, no. But then again, there were different rulers, and some wanted a taller one. There was also an argument about it, so it's a definite decision, depends who you would ask.
I'm a little bit confused. Which tower did you say hadn't reached its final
The
height?
middle tower was perfectly fine, right? According to their own plans. The smallest one was not quite there yet. but there were also those that would do them all three the same height, and you have to connect with bridges, etc. So when you're asking about plans, it depends who you're asking about what, all right? We have the image, their idea of what stood there and for what you are currently asking in a particular timeline, and we're referring to also listen back to what we said in the beginning of our current session direction, where considering general information from your own account given by beings such as us, right?
Right.
But when you're sharing about their idea of people who have certain plans, there are different plans on what was supposed to be done.
Okay. And so, like, the final question then, I guess, on this is, like, you had said that there was a space part in the center of the three towers, but, like, just a minute ago, like you said, there was a river. You know, the river went between the towers. So, like, where was the space part at?
Above the river, almost exactly, but the river was somewhat more, well, it wasn't straight, so we couldn't say it exactly, but it was located way up in the top, what we just shared that idea of building bridges between the towers, right? So it was on the top, not in between the towers in terms of being on the ground. Right?
Okay. So we're
like you have helicopter landing ports on some of your buildings today, right?
Yeah, so, like, are you saying the space part was on the roofs of the three buildings, or was it kind of like there was something hovering, like,
Yes.
in the air? Okay.
This was not necessarily hovering, it was connected between the towers that had the function to put something out that would then form something like a middle. It looked somewhat like the eye. You also have your so-called eye of whatever, right? You're now associated with the Illuminati, which is much older, however, correct? Which was then put in the center of a triangle, again, not a perfect triangle, but the idea, the construction was built in such a manner, it is perhaps futuristic even from your current perspective, and even more back then, right?
Okay.
So it's more a projectional construction connecting the towers, therefore forming something in the middle in the air. You have towers nowadays that are connected with bridges, correct? You can walk from one building to the other one without having to exit one building and walking over to the other one on the ground, right?
Right. So
But
were there
two separate buildings and something like this.
Okay, so, like, are you saying each tower had an actual physical bridge that, like, connected to a somewhat triangular shaped space part in between them?
It's not just a bridge that connected to it, it was formed. The connection space part was formed from structures coming out of the towers.
Okay. Okay, but I mean, like, these were physical structures. It wasn't kind of like just some energy beam holding the triangle in place?
Well, both. First and foremost, it was a physical structure, but obviously it would not have been very functional, not very strong as a foundation. If it just had been hovered there with a simple steel construction, it was energetically fastened, so that would be activated in order to be used as a spaceport.
Okay. So, I mean, what color should we draw this triangular space part? Well, I know there was an eye anyway, so it was probably many different colors.
The eye is very much green-like, right?
Okay.
Surrounding structure of a metal structure for similar coloration as your modern metal coloration would be.
Okay. Okay, so just to get you to clarify the eye a little bit, was it kind of like there was a black spot at the very center, and then, like, there was a green kind of iris around this?
No, it didn't look exactly like an eye, right? It's just the form, the structure of the eye with your symbol of your seeing eye coming from such an idea symbolic of it. So it's more an idea of being just a round spot in a larger, well, let's say an entirely black eye, right? Or no pupil, no iris, this one and the same thing. And around it, you have the white part, I would even recall in your English language, it was around it, right? But the center was entirely green.
Okay, I understand. All right, cool. Thanks, Kalask. Well, yeah, I guess that's all the questions that I have for you today. Lisa is up next. So, Lisa, are you ready?
Yes.
All right, cool. Thanks, Kalask. Much strength and honor, and I'll talk to you later.
Much information, curiosity, and artistic depiction for you with Ryan.
All right, appreciate it.
Greetings, Kalask, again.
Welcome back, Lisa, in the report of the time.
Yes, exactly. I was going over like different things that I wanted to talk about, but it seems like I don't know what to say right now. But let's just go with let's hold on. It's interesting. There's some people coming in and out right now of my home, and
yes, and some speaking to you over your so-called indirect connectivity from other worlds.
Yes, like
open house tonight. Yes.
Is it an open house? That's wonderful. Is it wonderful? Could you talk a little bit more about that? What do you mean by that?
Well, they're simply referring to right here. You are sending out the frequency of being open, right? Obviously, be uncertain it's good or bad as you just shared, but you are obviously current openly, considering interaction, and when you're having right here, what is it good being either connected, for example, to us, obviously that's great, or connected other entities, and there's the right here hampering your throat, right?
Yes.
And therefore you're willing to express yourself clearly, saying either no or yes to whatever is currently going on. So that's something you want to adhere to enunciate clearly whatever it is that you're truly sensing, right?
Yes, thank you.
There's certainly something in your throat you might want to adhere to when it comes to this particular subject.
Yes, I've been working on that. Well, yes, I've been working on that. Seeing that inside me and expressing myself more and being okay with that.
Yes, correct.
Yes, and reptilian energy is amazing and helping with getting in tune with yourself and being assertive, being forceful, being creative, and not trying to really eliminate what others are doing. Just create what you want to create, really.
Correct.
Yeah. Yes. There's been many things that I've been excited about concerning Kalask and many other reptilian energies, and I'm grateful.
Wonderful.
So I had a dream of a alligator I was holding, and I really enjoyed my interaction with this being. Do you know anything about it?
Well, obviously you're directing subconsciously with our species more frequently, greatly appreciated, and obviously your whole nurturing instinct, right? Considering your whole idea of, well, rock and hard place, there you might have a solution to some of those energies that was presented in such a manner between a rock and hard place. In this case, you have more like a reptile, a soft place, right?
Yes.
Which might much be more functional for you particularly. Others might have to have other form of direct with our species, or for you it seems to work quite smoothly, right? And all embracing ideas towards the particular frequency, again represented through our species and in your dream state. Remember, you are shifting dimensionalities, you are in a higher dimensionality where you can much easier process and integrate what you are experiencing much denser, physical, more condensed third dimensional reality.
Yes. Well, could something be explained about like the next day or after I processed that? Then I had a dream that we had gotten a canine, and then I'm like, why did we get a canine? And all of a sudden he's in an oven being cooked to death, and I had to watch the process. And I was, why can't we just put him out of his misery? I don't understand. I have to watch this. So but I was crying, I was weeping, I was going through it, but I told myself, you have to go through the process of this. So just do what you have to do and go through it. that one was a little bit more traumatic. I really, I feel like it. So what?
Yes. You need to manifest more clearly what you're wishing, right? When you are more wishy-washy reality, right? That part's more frequently changing. You have more the ability to adjust your thinking. So we are sharing in general here what you have in such a reality in between your lifetimes or in your dream state between waking hours, right? It's something more valuable version where you can make alterations. You don't have to suffer the consequences unless you want to, right?
Yes, exactly.
You can also intersect and change, and then your physical day-to-day reality, you have much easier time manifesting something. It's not just something that happens to you, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I can see, because I know that I don't, just because it's happening, and I think I was going through processes of that, but also I wanted to see, I think I wanted to see, like, how do I feel about that? And why do I feel the need to stop what's happening? And I actually thought it's because I wouldn't want to go through that. And then, but that, because that's just what I wouldn't want to go through. Right. So anyways, yeah, that was a little bit harder one, but I was appreciative of what was happening. But I do understand that. So what you're saying is when things are brought up, that I can see things, but I can also say, no, that's.
Yes, be more clear about your manifestation, right?
Yeah.
When you're getting something back you don't like, just change what you're putting out. You don't need to suffer the consequences of anything unless you are creating it. In other words, you don't need to suffer the consequences. You need to just deal with what it is that you're sending out. But it's not like you make your bed, now lie in it. More than rather, you make your bed and you have to lie in it until you decide to change it.
Yes.
Right.
That's
Nobody's gonna change it for you, but you can change it any time.
Yeah, and that's something that's been coming up for a long time, that I can't say yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, 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 yes, no. That I can't change because I said yes. Now I always have to say yes. Because I said no, I always have to say no. And that's what I was kind of brought up from. And so it's like, no, I can do whatever I want because I'm actually creating it anyways. So I can be like, yeah. And then a minute later, be like, nope, fuck you. I don't want to. And then, yeah, I just,
right.
Accepting doesn't mean I'm going to do that. I can and I have, but knowing that I can and that I am doing that anyways, that I'm doing this all, that it's a hard realization and coming sometimes. Other times it's pretty fluent.
Yes, and there you get have to rock the hard place, right? That
Yes.
you are creating.
Yes. Yes. I know.
Again,
And
nothing wrong. Just your
exactly.
decision.
It could be fun to find out why the fuck you're there. and then you can, it doesn't matter anyway. So I appreciate everything that you've been bringing forth. It's
right. We're
well,
just reflecting.
Yes, it's well needed for me and all of us. So.
Well. Also be protective of your frequency, right?
Yes.
You're leaking some energy the radio of your center, solar plexus there, right? Your self-identity is also something really linked to your expression throat, right? So we clear off your energy of your own personal space, right?
Yes.
Yes, that's something to adhere to strongly currently.
Okay. I will hone into that and
Right. Getting already better just that you're aware of it.
Yes, thank you. Appreciations and strength and fire and honor to you, Kalask.
Very appropriate.
All right, and with that, class, that's the end of our cue for you guys today. So, yeah, if you don't mind, can you connect us to the kitty cats, please?
Cut yourself there. Yes, we'll put some water in the vessel, and then we'll bring the kitty cats.
All right, thank you.
Yes. Much strength, information, appreciation, and integration of our frequency for our Snarky Collective and the next direction.
All right, likewise. Talk to you later.
Kalask! Thanks, everybody.
Greetings,
Metax.
Metax.
Yeah, hey, Metax. Yeah, Casper is the first up, so I'll let you go ahead, Casper.
Hello, Metax.
Greetings, Casper. Can you understand what I'm speaking like this, or do you need to get closer to the microphone?
It would be nice if you could get a little bit closer.
Yes, first that's better.
That's perfect. I'm wondering if I could speak to Sihar again.
One moment, please.
Thank you.
Greetings.
Greetings, Sihar. Could you move a little closer to the microphone? You're a little bit low.
Yes, no worries.
So, Sihar, I have been attempting to channel you several times since we spoke last month, and a couple of times it felt like I got contact with a being. However, it was mostly sounds like growling or purring or perhaps snarling, so I only got a few understandable words like hi and yes. So I'm wondering, was that you?
Yes, that was me. However, there was also somebody else interfering, since you were quite as clear you wish to speak with an angelic guy, somebody else from the same race, right?
Okay. Was it a hybrid or a pure feline?
Pure feline, yes.
Okay.
Someone who was much more connected or more in the idea of putting people through the same way this person is putting me through verbally right now. It was an energetic connector, so to speak. It was helping with the connection.
Okay, so could you tell me more about who that was?
Well, that was simply a person similar to the Metax, who was simply not as much in the terms of verbal communication with your species. Someone perhaps who's more in your telephone line, right? When you're older telephone lines, the idea of you have to say who you want to talk to, you're being put through, or perhaps a technician, you could say, and the idea of someone who's helping with the connection, except of course was an energetic, not technicality in terms of like screws, nuts, and bolts idea, or there was a masculine being, right?
Okay, great. Is there anything you would like me to do differently in order to better accommodate you when I'm channeling?
Accommodate, it sounds very formal. Perhaps be less formal and be more smooth about it. Just relax into it, be okay with whatever's coming out, don't second guess the idea who is this really Scar, or is this really the right word? Just be more smooth.
Okay. And is it helpful to you if I have crystals lying on me while I channel?
Certainly, yes.
Okay, any particular crystals or just anything is great?
Tiger eye helps.
Okay.
Obviously.
Yeah. And any specific place it would be good for me to put it, like on my throat?
Orange third eye, for example, also is very helpful, right?
Okay.
Heart.
Okay. Is there anything you would like to ask me?
Well, of course, why do you have desire to bring me through in such a manner?
Well, I find this whole extraterrestrial thing very fascinating, and I think that when I'm talking to another aspect of my own soul, I am, first of all, it's very exciting to hear what other incarnations I have and learn what I'm doing in other incarnations, and also I feel more confident that you are like you're only doing things that are in my best interests because we have the same oversoul. So yeah, I think that's it.
Very well, and of course I have your best interests in mind, my own best interests in mind. I was more asking the idea of bringing me through in such a fashion. Obviously, you're excited about our connection, and it's obviously mutual, right?
Yes. Yes, and also I'm thinking that I can probably learn a lot of things from you, like things like how the universe works and how to better manifest things and how to get better health and so on.
Very appropriate, I can tell you directly. However, if you wish to bring those ideas through, it's also perfectly fine with me. And how everything works, so to speak, is the best way to find out by being in the connectivity, not just with me, but also with your own self, right?
Yes.
And again, I would suggest you to take it lighter.
Okay. Can you describe a little bit about the feline culture? You told me last time you are trying to spread out to other planets. How is it compared to human culture, for instance?
Well, of course, we have some colonization. We are spreading the idea of being able to reproduce in other worlds as well, bring our culture there, for example, right? Building, etc. Compared to human culture, we are perhaps more, well, obviously we're energetically more advanced to the degree. We don't need to make many devices to do things. For example, we don't walk around with your technological gadgets to the same degree. We can do much more with our mind, right?
Yes.
So you don't find perhaps many functions that you would expect in a high-tech civilization, others that are there. We also appreciate being more in the flow when we interact with each other more personally, especially in your current world. There's a lot of interpersonal communication over your monetary system. We don't have the necessity for such, so therefore we have more of a friendship, cooperation. And when you're saying you have the best interest in mind, so do we among each other. So therefore there's more trust. That's perhaps the biggest difference that I would see in your world. There's no trust.
Yeah, that sounds nice. How you have it.
Well, yes, but we came here a long way.
Yeah, I know. How do you people show affection? Do you kiss like humans, or more like rubbing your heads against each other like cats, or lie in a big cuddly pile like cats? Or
We put our noses together.
okay,
That's perhaps what you would consider kissing.
yeah, and then feel each other's energy, I suppose.
Correct. There's also connectivity from the third eyes, right? You're perhaps also familiar with your cats rubbing or hitting their foreheads, right? Against another, right? There's the same process, right?
Mm.
And of course the heart. The energy can flow in and out from the heart to another individual, but you also need to be very careful about sharing your energy in your world if you're doing the same, because it's a different environment.
Yeah. And can you tell me about how feline relationships differ from humans who are in a relationship?
There's perhaps this ego battle going on.
Mm-hmm.
That you're having in the idea of one trying to have the upper hand in some regards and the other than in others, etc. It's perhaps a little smoother.
Yeah.
But again, it's a learning process. We've been at times in what you consider past-time interaction, where there's much more scratching each other's eyes out as well.
Okay. Do you have a spouse and kids?
I have a spouse, yes, and I'm currently having a son.
Okay. So he's not born yet, or is he born?
Yes, he's born, and I might have a daughter.
Oh, nice. And when you're colonizing planets, if there is a third dimensional civilization on a planet where you're settling, can you then feel them if you get into physical contact with them, or would you pass right through them like ghosts?
If you're in a higher dimensionality, you are able to lower your frequency. If somebody was in a higher frequency, you would just pass through them without noticing them.
Okay, so if for instance, if three-dimensional people were cutting down a tree, would that also disappear from your 5D reality, or would the topography be completely different for you than those in 3D?
It would be a different topography, but again, we can also tune into your frequency and see the difference. So it's not that we wouldn't be aware of that. Again, from a higher frequency, you can see into a lower one and be aware of what's going on, but we could have a different topography next to it, so to speak. There's still some interaction though with three-dimensionalities, but it's mostly the higher dimensionality that influence the lower. But there's always some form of interaction between them. Nothing just happens by chance.
Okay. And when you're colonizing planets that are already inhabited, are you then living peacefully there with the natives?
depends. We prefer to colonize planets that are not as populated by a higher level species such as ours, but more that have like lower frequency inhabitants that are perhaps not in the same level of dimensionality or structure. So it's more second or third dimensional would be to a being in a higher fifth dimensional realm. So they're not as aware of us as we are of them.
Clever. What is your favorite thing to do?
Exploration itself.
So inner exploration or exploration in like the physical world?
In, well, what you would consider physical world, yes, actual discoveries, right?
Okay. And I was wondering, do you have technology or devices that can cure injuries and illnesses permanently, not just band-aid them? And if so, would you be able, allowed, and willing to use it a little bit on me to help me recover from my chronic fatigue syndrome and other physical ailments?
I wouldn't do that to you. You would still have to learn the same lesson all over again, not according to your interactions. However, yes, of course, we have such technologies, but first and foremost, of course, on a very frequency, is rather asking, how can you be healed? And yes, of course, we have such technology, but the main point is you getting in touch with your own internal frequency, your own power center would much more accomplish this process than if I put a band-aid on. Because when you're asking about putting band-aids on or putting something permanently, there is no permanent healing without the self healing itself, right? And sometimes yes, asking for help is an important part of it, but usually the idea being when you are asking for something from outside, it's usually a band-aid because you are still pulsing on the same frequency.
Yeah, I understand. Okay. Well, okay. Well, I hope when I'm channeling you, then that you would help me to like fix some of the permanent problems with the frequency as I'm sending out, so to attain better health and healing.
I couldn't help you if I couldn't connect to you if there was still a frequency maladjustment that will have to be anyway a part of the process itself. Because that's what's still keeping you somewhat at bay, because if you are undergoing pain, it is not that I don't want to interact with you, it's just an energetic mismatch. Because I am not undergoing such a pain structure, but the fact that you can speak through me, to me, through this person, shows you that you have the capacity to reach such a frequency yourself.
Okay, so you're saying by the time that I will be able to channel you, I will already be at good health?
It will come along in the process itself. If that is to come about, it needs to come about simultaneously.
Okay, nice. And then I'm wondering, if you wanted to, could you pull a physical or a 3D physical body out of 3D and into 5D, so that it could be possible for a human to visit higher realms or Psyche bar, or would only the person's astral body or higher self ever be able to visit the fifth dimension, for instance?
The latter. However, you can of course also identify with that version, and then therefore the current idea that you have of yourself would be in the dimensionality and no longer in the search. You would necessarily feel the difference. But I don't pull people out of their current reality.
No, okay. And I'm wondering, do you sense if there are any airy-fairy beings that would like to connect with me on a more physical level? Someone that would visit me physically or invite me onto their spaceship or onto their planet or dimension?
I hope this wish doesn't come from an idea of escapism, the idea of getting away from any problems, because that's not how it works. However, that's what I'm picking up. So I'm sharing with you more the idea to integrate those frequencies in your current day-to-day reality. The possibility exists, but I wouldn't focus on that in your current incarnation.
Wow, you are so perceptive, Sierra.
Yes, it's almost like I have the contact to the same frequency of a higher self like you do.
Yeah, okay. Can't hide anything from you now. Right. I'm wondering if you know or remember what existence is like between incarnations. I mean, when you are discarnated, can you experience anything you want, like a holodeck simulator? For instance, if I want to, can I just manifest my dream car and race it around on tracks, or experience what it will be like to be in a relationship with a girl I was in love with but never got?
Yes, of course.
Okay, nice. And I know when we die, we go through a life review. So I'm wondering, does each little ego person go through their individual life review, or is it synchronized so that the ego from each timeline merge before doing a kind of grand life review?
You're separating a lot your own identity. It's more the idea you become more aware once you leave the physical who you really are. And you are then more identified with yourself, and as such you're looking at your life. Of course, also depends how, perhaps, I don't want to say evolved, but how fine-tuned or aligned the person is once they're exiting. The people, for example, that they think there is no other life at all and they are just disappearing or vanishing, well, might have a more confused identity once they exit the body and they first need to become aware of the fact that they still exist, while others that are perhaps more aware of being such as us will likely be more aligned with those frequencies. Some of them more religious will likely have some religious reflections of their own beliefs, etc., etc.
Okay. But, yeah. Okay. Do you know what my spirit crystal is?
Depends what you're calling such.
Okay, well, as far as I understand, it's kind of like a spirit animal, but just a crystal. I think it's one that would benefit me much to wear or interact with.
If you want to call crystals by such names, it's perfectly fine. As I mentioned earlier, directing the tiger eye is obviously beneficial with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Depends what you wish to use those crystals for. Depends what state you're currently in. You could use something for your heart.
Okay, and what would you recommend for that?
It doesn't have to necessarily be a crystal. It can be something like a quartz, rose quartz.
Okay. And I don't know if you can sense this, but do I feel or experience emotions the same way that other humans do? Because it's emotions feel quite vague and quite gray to me, and so I'm just wondering if other people feel emotions more vibrantly or more intensely than I do.
First and foremost, you cannot perceive anything that you are capable to access, so what you're calling other people's emotions, to some degree also yours, it's just that you're perceiving them on the outside. Everybody perceives everything somewhat different, but there still needs to be some connectivity between you and others. And the whole idea of perceiving emotion in a certain way can also be an identity that you create for yourself and identify with other peoples that are perhaps not as emotionally vibrant as you're calling such, if you wish to make that as an identity. But in reality, it's just a frequency function that you're using. Everybody feels the level of emotion that they're aligned with. If you want to put this in categories, you can feel free to do so.
Okay. And then I'm wondering if you could explain dimensions a bit more to me. I mean, as far as I understand, the first dimensional beings is plants and crystals, and then second dimension beings is animals, and then humans are third, bordering to fourth dimensions. Is that correct, or do you see it in another way?
That's one way to perceive it.
And then can you explain what happens in the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension, and also how it feels differently to be in those different dimensions?
The heart obviously is more open than it's currently in your world, where you're exiting it, or rather broadening your horizon, but it's difficult to find words in some of your languages to describe something to you that you have never experienced. Your internet perhaps would be somewhat a reflection of the fifth dimensionality, of the interconnectedness, for example. The awareness, where you perhaps have so many arguments on your internets. You have disagreements, but you're more aware of what is out there and how it interrelates to each other. So perhaps some of what you're calling this geek are somewhat aligned to this frequency, but again, it would be different if you would manifest it in a more physical reality that you're experiencing day to day when you are in that dimensionality. I'm looking for reference points that I can find that are somewhat interrelated with your world, but again, once you're in a higher dimensionality, you have a different perception to begin with.
Yeah.
I'm trying to relate things directly to you also, perhaps also an idea of what you're desiring to interact with me, so you perhaps have a better understanding than what I can share verbally. Telepathy also becomes much more functional. You will less guess what other person might be up to. You might less feel the need to express yourself verbally or through written communication. You will be more trusting your own gut, or whatever you call it such, when it comes to interaction, including with beings in other dimensionalities that are below you and you can still interact with, even if they cannot perceive you as fully, just like I'm doing right now.
And I'm thinking that that I've been astral projecting about 15 or 20 times, and when I'm in the astral world, it feels more like air.
Malleable.
Yeah. And so is that how the fourth dimension feels, or is that the fifth or the sixth dimension, or all of them?
If you wish to use those terms, it will definitely be more like all of them than what your current reality is. So you might perceive the fifth, sixth, fourth, all more or less dimensionality higher than yours, so they were somewhat different and stranger, right? And more malleable, so correct. It's not like those dimensionalities are all exactly the same. Obviously, they're different, but from your current perception, they all seem like it. For example, if you would perhaps try to learn languages from a different continent that are more or less sounding similar, and to you they all sound somewhat similar, but if you would be then there and understand one language, you would see more differences. That's the best metaphor I can use right now.
Okay. And do the higher dimension, do you automatically feel more joy and more connection to all other beings than when you're in the third dimension?
It is sort of a giant party in the terms that it's all fun, but you're perhaps more serene. In the idea, you have more of an understanding of the ups and lows, and therefore you're perhaps not as affected. It's not a magic solution to everything, assuming that.
Yeah, okay.
But you understand better what's going on. You're as confused, perhaps.
And
Things become more complicated and complex, but you also have a greater understanding compared to the life of a caveman to the life you have today. In some manners, your current lifestyle might be much easier than that of a caveman. In some regards, it's more complicated.
Okay.
There's more to be seen. There's a reference point to what I used earlier, considering your internet study, perhaps you have more of an awareness of what's going on, but you also see both problems and solutions more clearly.
Okay. And can you feel, well, I'm wondering if you could explain the kind of the mechanics behind the different dimensions. I mean, as I understand, they are all happening at the same physical locations, but it's just kind of like, yeah, like a different vibration. But can you elaborate on that?
First, like the parallel universe, as you would call this. The same manner a two-dimensional being can exist close to you, but they have a completely different perception of what's going on. It's somewhat where there is something beyond its reality that it's experiencing, but not to the complexity of what's happening.
But is an animal like a cow or a sheep or a cat we have here on Earth, are they perceiving reality differently? I mean, I thought they were just kind of less intelligent, but are they kind of like perceiving a different reality?
Yes, but intelligence to some degree is related to it. Not necessarily in terms of what you consider in your IQ.
Mm-hmm. So how is like a house cat on Earth experiencing the world differently than we humans are?
Well, obviously a lot of your feline entities in your world are so much higher evolved than others, obviously, otherwise they wouldn't be connected to us so smoothly. And also some of them are also already in higher dimensionality than what you might be aware of. But what they perceive is simply their own version of reality. And therefore, there's something more primal. Again, I would use the reference rather as the cave person that I used earlier. You could consider a different level of intelligence if you wish, but not necessarily in your intellectual sense of having more information.
So I'm curious. You say that some of our cats have higher in higher dimensions. How high do they go here on Earth, and what cat species are the ones with a higher consciousness?
Sometimes beings of us interrelate with your feline entities on Earth, and then we can perceive you, for example, through them, directing like ice. Okay. And that happens sometimes to those beings if they're aligned to the frequency and they're at least on the same level as you are, dimensionality-wise. Also your whales, for example, or dolphins.
Okay, and the cats you're talking about, that is that like house cats or lions and tigers we have in the wild, or all of them?
It can happen with all of them, but it not necessarily happens with every single individual. It's possible for beings of another world to interrelate with them and then be inside them. You'll see it when you have eye contact with them.
Wow, fascinating.
It is like there are species that are doing this as well, but I'm informing you only about our kind.
I didn't understand. Could you repeat?
I'm just informing you about our kind, obviously, because that's the one that I can best relate to, but it's like the other species have the same capacity to tune into certain entities.
Okay. Okay. Right. Well, I'm thinking that I will leave time for the others to also ask questions for you or for Metax if any of them have questions. So thank you so much for talking to me. It's been absolutely wonderful, and I'm looking so much forward to channeling you and the phone operator once again.
Much appreciation from my side as well, and enjoy.
Much
Hi,
love.
Sihar. Yeah, hi, Sihar. I don't really have too many questions for you today. I just basically kind of just wanted to say hi and much love to the whole feline species, your collective in particular. I think the felines are really awesome. Um, I have two cats that live with me, and like one thing that I do want to ask, like how do you personally clean yourself? Do you take showers like humans do, or do you just kind of lick your fur like cats here on Earth do?
The surface water was air, what we have during the year. There's an air shower. There's just a very particular technology. I can basically just cleanse the fur.
Okay.
Blow, like you have your blow dryers perhaps, but it's much more intense and much more sophisticated and not just for drying, but for cleanse.
Okay, I got you. And one thing that kind of confused me earlier, you said something like you might have a daughter. I'm confused what you meant by that. Did you mean like on another timeline you have a daughter and on your current timeline you don't?
That's one way to put it.
Okay. Uh, you said you like to explore. I mean, just kind of out of curiosity, like how far from your home have you explored? Like, for example, have you gone outside of the Milky Way galaxy?
Yes, I have, and considering what you already aware of dimensionality-wise, yes, we can hop dimensionalities and also find more in your own Milky Way galaxy, but it's been outside of it, yes.
Okay. Cool. You're lucky. I would love to do that one day. But all right. Well, yeah, that's pretty much all the questions that I have for you. I have a lot for Metax. But yeah, thanks for talking to us. It was interesting, for me hearing about, the different dimensionalities and what happens to us whenever we die. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Much love to you, and hopefully we'll be able to talk again. But Lisa, do you have any questions for Sihar?
Yes, actually, I would like to talk with her.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Hi. Greetings,
Hi.
Sihar. I really enjoy you.
I noticed.
Yeah. Seems like
I
there's
enjoy as well. Yes.
there's a lot in common.
Yes.
Um. I was wondering, like, when I put my body to sleep and I go into another realm, do I enter another body at that time? Or am I non-physical still?
You are in your astral body, which is not physical, so the answer to those questions is yes, it's not either an or, it's both. You are in a non-physical dimensionality and you have something like an astral body that you're using while you're there.
Yeah, because that is what it feels like more. And then, yeah. Are we able to, though, at that time connect to a body physically in another realm, or?
Yes, you are, or you can, for example, connect to another person also that is currently in the same state, but you're then also interacting with the other person's astral body and will influence the other person's physical body as well. And you're also interacting with beings that are connected to your oversoul, that are incarnated somewhere else in a physical form, but they will not be as aware of it as a being in a higher dimensionality will be, or rather the higher dimensional version will be aware of it, but the physically incarnated version somewhere else, another dimensionalities are lower in frequency, will just be aware that something is happening, but not what it is.
Yeah, like pretty much what is happening with me. I don't know exactly. I know I'm connecting with many, but I don't know to the extent, or I can. I understand that. I haven't allowed myself. I'm getting there.
Well, you're already there. You just need to accept and embrace that fact.
Yeah.
Remember, there's no timing, so there's no getting there.
That's what I was talking to myself about. Like, especially if I'm creating this, there is no time, so I don't have to hurry things up, or I don't have to like fix something, or I can just be.
No, things tend to fix itself if you are in the flow, and then you will feel inclined to act certain ways automatically.
Yes, that's
and then you do act upon that.
Yes. Because I do understand that change is always constantly happening, and you're always moving, and so.
Right, and therefore you are constantly in the process of change, and you can decide if you want to identify with the quality of change, with the acceleration itself, or with the with a certain state that you need to change then over to another one. But ultimately, there is change and constant around the same thing. If you get higher dimensionality, you will understand.
Yeah, I think the crow's talking.
I heard.
Yeah, I love them. Yeah, being centered wherever I'm at, even when it is going to change to something completely different, being anchored in me, and then having fun with the change, because then change happens. It's happening all the time, but letting it flow, letting it change, not being afraid that it's completely different than yesterday, or what's happening now, or yeah.
Yes, and yesterday and now are the same thing, ultimately. So what's completely different is just your perception. You perceive something to be different, and therefore it is.
Yes. It's as simple as that.
Right, you can make it as complicated as you wish, however.
I know you can, and that's
Don't
fun
have
too.
to.
Yeah, you don't have to. But we're the only ones doing it. Myself. So, thank you, Sihar. It was enjoyable you being here.
You're
So,
very welcome.
I will go ahead and let others speak. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Much love and connectivity to Lisa.
Much love and
Now.
connection to you as well.
Yeah, thanks again, Sihar. It was a pleasure hearing from you today. Much love, and if you can connect back to Metax, I'd appreciate it.
Very well, I also would appreciate it, and until the next interaction, much love to everybody.
Much love. Talk to you later.
Like, no. Greetings, everyone. Back in David's party.
Hello again, Metax. Does David have enough water?
Oh, some more. Whatever, we're drawing close on the timing, so should be good for now.
Okay. Yeah, like you said, we only have like 4 or 5 minutes left, so I just have a few questions. But so about the father of the father of Jesus, Joseph, or David, as his real name was he like an extraterrestrial, like a human ET, like somebody who looks similar to Earth humans, like the Venusians, for example?
From what I'm aware of, he was a normal person born on Earth just like yourself. Of course, there's people that have incarnation in other worlds, and you can call them star-seated people or whatever, but that's actually refers to many different versions of people, and it's more complicated than you might imagine, or some people like to make it. Genetically, from what I'm aware, the person was very, very normal Earth person.
Okay.
Yeah, depends what views you're asking about, what from what I'm aware of the person that you just named, would indeed just a normal person on Earth.
Okay. And were Mary and Joseph the parents of, like, which version of Jesus were they the parents of? Like the rebellious person, or the one who went to India, or who?
The more rebellious person, the one who went to India, was both genetically altered.
Okay. Okay, so on another topic, the Spanish Empire believed in a lost city of gold named El Dorado, located somewhere in South America. Did this really exist?
Well, not just one, but one they were particularly referring to. Yes, there's indeed such a city that existed at one point, what you consider timing. A lot of the structures over there could perhaps be referred to with such a name. Many of the ancient cultures there were remnants from the Lemurian and Atlantean civilizations, offshoots obviously had riches, even though it was not mainly what they were interested in, but the conquistadors perhaps had mostly this intention in mind of finding physical riches that were indeed present in some of those civilizations.
Okay. So, allegedly, the city of El Dorado it was a city that had a king who covered himself in gold dust. Was there any city with a king like this?
Yes, there was certainly a city where gold was adhered to quite a degree because it was considered substance of the gods, because many visitors originally had used the substance in particular, and therefore that's how it became something of value in your civilization. The person wanted also to look somewhat more like beings from outside, decided that was the best way he could come up with a disguise.
Okay.
That's it in a nutshell.
So what happened to the city and the civilization? Do they still exist underground somewhere?
Well, perhaps in another dimensionality to get back to that, but the original city back then was destroyed in many conflict with neighborings, and eventually then also by conquistadors some themselves. Also, they had some visitation by earlier settlers from the European continent. It's not in your recorded history. It had some conflicts there, but mainly that conflict with beings around them in a similar civilization.
Okay. I know this city was in another dimension, but was it on the surface or underground?
It was on the surface, but they had also underground structures, but it's not like they were deep in Earth, but they had a surface level population, and they also had something like catacombs.
Okay. I don't want exact coordinates, but are you able to say roughly where in South America the El Dorado city was located or is located?
In the northern part of South America. Perhaps it's close to the Andes Mountains, but not in the mountains.
Okay. Well, yeah, we're pretty much right at the end of our time today. Well, I got like one very quick question. Like in the next private session that I do, I plan on if they're willing to talk to me, I plan on talking to one of the Venusians. Is it possible for you to say which one is willing to talk to me so that like I could better prepare my questions or at least topics for this person, or should I just wait until we have the session and see which one of them wants to talk to me?
It's ideal to wait. Of course, also wish for some particular person from a certain civilization to interact with you if you have a preference, and I can ask if there's a person with those attributes that mostly prepared for such interaction.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I was mostly interested in, mainly interested in talking to the Valiant Thor person, but like you said before, like he's probably not like willing to talk to me. So you said, I think like somebody from his ship might be willing to talk to me. Do you know if that's still the case?
We shall see about that. It pretty depends on your definition of what you are calling such as those are just names that were also again made up for people on Earth. But there are certain people with a certain frequency that can talk to you from a civilization that's connected to the planet that you know as Venus.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I guess that brings us to the end of our session today. So much appreciation, Metax, for sharing this information and bringing Seahor through to us. Much love, and yeah, I guess we'll talk. Well, I'll talk to you in a few weeks, and the rest of us will talk to you in a month. But yeah, thanks, Metax, and talk to you later.
Until our next interaction, towards you and the group. Goodbye for now.
I love you, Metax.
I love you.
Bye, Metax.